Hey, what's up, guys? This is Benny Ricciardi with rotocurve.com, and I'm here with our DraftKings NBA plays for Thursday, March 3rd. Now, there's only a 4-game slate here, and I think the OKC and Golden State game is the one that a lot of people are going to be looking at. So what we tried to do today with our targets video is give you guys some tournament targets that are guys that are a little bit contrarian, might be a little bit lower owned, and could be the difference that pushes you over the top in the tournament. So let's take a look at the slideshow and talk a little bit about who those guys are and, why we like them and what we're trying to get into with them here. The 3 guys that we're going to be talking about are Rajon Rondo at 8,200, Anthony Davis at 9,700, and LaMarcus Aldridge at 6,600. Now, Rondo at 8,200, with that Golden State OKC game going on, the chalk plays for the point guard position are probably going to be Steph Curry and or Russell Westbrook. I think those two are going to be the guys that are highly owned and the guys that people are trying to fit into their roster. So that leaves Rondo flying, pretty low under the radar here. He gets a high-paced matchup against a Dallas team. And remember, this is a revenge game for Rondo. He got traded from Boston over to Dallas last year. Things didn't really work out all that well. There were things said from both sides, him at the management and, the management at, the way he was playing and how hard he was playing and stuff like that. So he's definitely going to have a little bit of extra motivation in this game as well. Now, I don't think that Rondo is going to outscore Steph Curry or Russell Westbrook, but I do think that he's still going to have a pretty good game and get pretty close. Now, it's over a $2,000 savings, so you really just need Rondo to be within 12 points of those guys in order for him to be a solid play. Now, the first time these two teams matched up, both Steph and Russ Westbrook wound up with about 51, 55 fantasy points, somewhere in that range. Last time they played, I think we got about 55 out of Westbrook too. Curry had a big game where he hit the 12 threes and wound up with like 66 or 67. So like I said, I still think it's likely that Steph Curry and Russell Westbrook outscore Rajon Rondo. But we have seen Rondo put up 40 and 50 fantasy points. If Rondo can get himself, if Westbrook and or Curry get to 55 or 56, and Rondo can get himself up to like the 43 to 44 range, then on a dollar-for-dollar basis, he actually returned more points for you per dollar than the guys like Steph and Westbrook did, which would put you a little bit ahead of people who decided to go and spend up for them, on the day, and would also give you an extra $2,000 where the rest of your roster could be better than, the rest of the roster that a Steph Curry or a Russell Westbrook owner was able to throw at you. So like I said, we're looking for contrarian plays in tournaments today. I think Rajon Rondo is going to be very low owned, flying very far under the radar, and I think he does still have the upside that he can help you win a tournament. The next guy we're going to talk about is Anthony Davis. You got Boogie Cousins and Draymond Green in better matchups today at the power forward spot, and I think Davis is the guy that people are looking at and just kind of glancing over. I think that might be a mistake on the day because he had 62 and 52 fantasy points in 2 matchups with the Spurs this year. If you look back to last season, he had some other games of 52, 58, 56. So he's actually put up really good numbers against the Spurs, despite the fact that most people are going to glance over it because the Spurs are a really good defensive team. They're favored and they should probably win this game. Now, when you're looking today to build a roster, like we said, even with Steph Curry and Russell Westbrook at the point guard spot, you can't pay up for superstars anywhere. And I think those are the guys that people are going to be gravitating towards. So if people are gravitating towards Steph and Russ and at the power forward spot, even, Davis's own position, they're looking at guys like Draymond Green, who's about $800 cheaper, or Boogie Cousins, who's about $1,000 more expensive. Davis is going to kind of get lost in the shuffle there. You could wind up getting a guy who has good numbers against the team he plays in a pretty good matchup, who's going to be pretty low owned and does have the upside to give you, what did he have the other day? 90-something DraftKings points. So if you can get that kind of 8, 9, 10x upside out of a guy, that's going to be enough upside to win a tournament, obviously. There's nothing that says that, Anthony Davis can't be the highest scorer on the day. I don't think I'd feel comfortable enough to use him in cash. But like I said, he could definitely get you, the most points at the position or even the most points overall of any player on the slate, and do so probably at the lowest ownership rate. And the most points at the lowest ownership is just the kind of thing we look for when we're looking for a contrarian play that can help us win a tournament. Another guy who I think is in a pretty good spot here is going to be LaMarcus Aldridge at only 6,600. He's likely the fourth best option on the day at the power forward spot, so I think his ownership is going to be pretty low. The price break, though, between him and some of the other guys that we're talking about in the superstar status is a few $1,000s. He's $2,300 cheaper than Draymond, $3,000 cheaper than Brow, and $4,000 cheaper than Cousins. Now, those numbers might not mean a lot, but let's break it down on a 6x kind of basis. In order to get 6x out of LaMarcus Aldridge at 6,600, you're probably going to need about 39.5 fantasy points. Now, with Draymond Green being 2,300 more, you're going to need about 13 or 14 more fantasy points out of him. So you're going to need him to get you about 53. Anthony Davis at 9,700, you're going to need him to get you somewhere in the range of about 57. And Cousins at 10,700, you're going to need him to get you somewhere in the range of 64 in order to get 6x value. So basically, LaMarcus Aldridge has the, easiest path to reach his his upside value for a tournament. We saw him put up 40 and 50 fantasy points in the last 2 games. That's how we got to that 45 point per game average. And in the games that they've already played against New Orleans this year, we've seen him put up over 40 and 50 fantasy points. So this guy's been getting us the 40 fantasy points that we need for 6x value on a consistent basis, and has even gone above that, which would make him one of those guys that's a value-added player on the day and a good option to use in GPPs. What we mean by value-added is you get $50,000 in salary on DraftKings in order to build your roster. If you get 6x value out of everybody, then for every $1,000 that you pay, if you're getting 6 times value out of it, you're going to wind up with a roster that scores 300 points. 300 points on most nights is going to put you up there towards the top of any one of the GPPs. Sure, we have some high-scoring days where 350 or 360 takes down a GPP, but if you can get into the 300 range, you're almost guaranteed that you're going to be able to cash any of the GPP rosters that you threw out there. If you're cashing all your GPP rosters, you're very likely also cashing all of the cash game rosters that you put in, whether it be in 50-50s or, double ups. And you're also going to be cashing in all like the triple ups as well there. Head to head, it always matters about which opponent you have, but you should be winning 60 to 80% of your head to head games, probably closer to 70 to 80% of your head to head games if you're getting a score of 300 on the day. So you can see how that 6x number is something that we really look for. Can Draymond Green get us 53 or Brow get us 58 or Cousins get us 65? Sure. But I think the safest path to getting up to getting upside and also to have big upside on it is LaMarcus Aldridge at only 6,600. If he goes out there and scores 50 points, he's going to give you what I like to call 11 points of value added. Value added is basically the amount of points a guy gets you over 6x, which helps you make up for some of the misses that you have here. Sure, like I said, Cousins could put up 60 or 65 points, but he needs to do that just to make value. There's not going to be a lot of value added unless he gives you a 75 or 80 point day. Now, we have seen him do that every once in a while, but I feel more comfortable looking for LaMarcus Aldridge to get me a number in the 40s and be one of those guys that can, give me some value added. Like I said, he's another guy that I think is going to be lower owned because there are other options at the position. So when we're looking for, tournament swerves on the day, I think he's another guy that's a very viable option. On a small 4-game slate like this, there's always going to be a lot of overlap. There's not going to be a lot of really low owned guys. Even some of these guys who we mentioned here that we're saying are going to be lower owned are probably still going to be in the 15 to 20% range just because there is a lack of overall options. But still, if you're going to have, 40%, 50% ownership on guys like, DeMarcus Cousins or Steph Curry or Russell Westbrook, the guys that most people are building their rosters around, these other guys have just as good a chance of getting you the upside for the price as some of those guys do, and they're going to be much lower owned. So in cash games, these are not the guys that you're looking to swerve to. These are not the guys that I would recommend for a cash game today. I would recommend that you do what everybody else is doing. Take your favorite out of Steph Curry and Russell Westbrook. Take your DeMarcus Cousins and put them on your roster. That's the way you should be building your cash game rosters. But in tournaments, you want to do something different than what everybody else is. So if we think, and rightly so, that the chalk is going to be guys like Steph Curry, Russ Westbrook, and DeMarcus Cousins, the guys that I gave you here are some other guys who have just as good a chance of reaching upside for a few $1,000s cheaper and can help you win a tournament because they're going to be much lower owned. So that's our teaching point along with our NBA video for today. Like I said, it's a small slate. There's only 4 games, but I know what I'm going to be doing later on tonight, and I think most of you should be doing the same. If that last OKC Golden State game is any indication of what we're going to see tonight, I can't wait until that game starts, 10 o'clock over here on the East Coast for me and, 7 o'clock out west for you guys on the other side of the country. So thank you guys for joining us here at rotocurve.com. And as always, stay classy, DFS.